Welcome to the Anglotopia Podcast, where we explore British history, culture, and travel. I'm your host, Jonathan Thomas, and today is an experimental episode of the podcast where we'll go through what's happening in London this month. Since it's an experiment, we're releasing this as a bonus episode, and if it's popular, we will do this every month. So let us know what you think in the various comment forums. So, it's June in London. The sun is up before 5 in the morning. It doesn't set until nearly 10 at night, and the city has well and truly shaken off whatever was left of winter. If you've ever wondered what the best month to visit London is, a lot of people will quietly tell you it's this one. The days are enormously long, the events calendar is absolutely bursting, and the whole place feels like it's operating at full capacity. In recent weeks, the weather has been sunny and beautiful, with London having a heat wave. And we'll talk about that in a minute, how to cope with the heat wave while traveling. Today, I'm walking you through what's actually on this June, the royal pageantry, the major museum openings, the theater, the music, all of it, giving you a sense of how to plan around it. Whether you're heading to London this summer or planning ahead, consider this your June guide. So, the feel of June in London. I've been to London in June. It was beautiful every time I went. The light is the headline for June. You get 16 to 17 hours of daylight in London during June. Twilight stretches from around 8 p.m. to nearly 10 p.m. You can have a full day of exploring, sit down for dinner, and still walk home along the Thames and have some daylight. So let's talk about the weather first. The weather, the most reliable it gets you all year. Daytime temperatures in the low to mid 60s Fahrenheit, around 7 or 8 hours of sunshine on average. If it's not cloudy, rain is possible, but it's still London after all. But in June, it's the exception, not the rule. However, June can be very warm. So be forewarned that it could be up in the 70s or 80s. And Britain has very thick humidity, so it can get really hot really quickly. And we'll talk about how to cope with the heat a little bit later. The trade-off is that because the weather is so beautiful in June, it is peak tourist season, especially for Americans. Americans usually take their vacations in the summer. So crowds are up, hotel prices are up, often 20 to 40% above May's prices. And the popular tourist attractions will need advanced booking because they will be booked out in advance, or they will be crowded, or you will wait in long lines. It's not unpleasant, but it's noticeably busier than spring. My recommendation is that our favorite seasons are bumper seasons. So, the spring and the fall, but a lot of people can only take their vacations in the summer. So if you have to go in the summer, June is great, because we'll talk about July next month if we do this again, but July will be a lot warmer and the weather can be a lot harsher. So June is kind of that middle ground where the weather's still pleasant. So if you're like me, where my kids are already on summer vacation, June is a great time to go to London because everybody's off of school. So June is a big month for royal events and big cultural set pieces. So the first one to talk about is Trooping the Colour. King Charles's birthday was earlier this year, but like his mother before him and the previous monarchs, there's an official birthday, and the official birthday is usually held the second Saturday in June. That means that's when all the royal pageantry happens. So the Trooping the Colour is the monarch's official birthday parade. It's full of British spectacle, thousands of soldiers, mounted cavalry, the bands, the historic regiments. They march from Buckingham Palace down the Mall to Horse Guards Parade, and then they present their colors to the king. Usually there's a carriage procession, and more often than not, they'll ride the carriages back to Buckingham Palace, and then they'll appear on the balcony. And usually there's a fly past of the RAF. Sometimes they do the Battle of Britain Memorial flight. Sometimes they do the Red Arrows. Sometimes it's a mix of all kinds of planes. But it's usually the cornerstone royal event of the year. And sometimes, like when there's a major royal event, like a jubilee or a wedding, they might time it to when Trooping the Colour is. But in years like this year, when there isn't really any other major royal event, this is kind of the major royal event of the year. So now, if you want to experience this instead of watching it on the telly like most of us do every year, um, you can experience it in person pretty easily. So um, you can apply for the ballot for seats at the actual Horse Guards parade. But those are really hard to come by. It's a balloted system. You have to do it through the Ministry of Defense. Kind of like you have to, it's all really kind of all about who you know if you really want to be in the stands. But it doesn't mean that you can't see the public spectacle. There's the procession from Buckingham Palace to Horse Guards Parade is over a mile long. So most of the crowds will either camp out or line that route, and then you can see all the royal pageantry happen. You might miss the trooping part on the Horse Guards Parade, but you'll at least see the processions and you'll see the flyover, and they'll let the crowd in to the roundabout in front of Buckingham Palace to see the balcony appearance where you can wave at the king and the royal family. So it's usually it's I've not been in London for the Trooping the Color, but I've done similar royal pageantry experiences on the Mall, and it's worth doing. The British are the best at this, so I it's a lot of fun. So if you can manage it, then I would do it. Again, honest advice: if you really want to see this, plan your day around it. Get up stupidly early, like 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Get your spot on the Mall and soak up the atmosphere, because it'll kind of be like a party atmosphere, and there will be like people handing out things. They usually hand out like the binoculars that let you look above the crowds, or get your spot, get your place, hydrate. Usually there will be public porta potties put out for people. Go as a team so that you can all kind of watch your spot. So that way you don't lose your spot, because it can get pretty ruthless there on the Mall during a major royal event. So in addition to Drooping the Color, the other big royal event in June is Royal Ascot, which is the big horse racing weekend. This is when the women will don their finest dresses and wear fascinators and everything. And there's a special royal day, which can be hard to get tickets for. It's technically out near Windsor, which is west of London, so it's not in the city itself, but culturally, like, London experiences this thing. Ascot Week is when you start seeing extravagant hats and fascinators on the tube and dresses and whatnot. And if you're into horses and British pageantry, take a look, get tickets if you can. It's very hard to get into the royal enclosure, obviously, but if you can get there on the day where they do the royal procession, where you usually see most of the royal family do their procession, it's a lot of fun and worth doing. And then the other big major event coming up is Wimbledon. Americans will be very familiar with Wimbledon, the famous Wimbledon tennis match. The tennis itself usually starts at the end of June and goes into July, but in June, city's mood is already shifting towards it. The famous meal that you have at Wimbledon is strawberries and cream. It's really hard to get tickets to Wimbledon, so there's a whole ballot and a resale process. I'll link in the show notes. Go to the Wimbledon website. You can learn all about it if you want to try and get tickets. But if you can't get tickets, there's also things going on around Wimbledon that you can get involved in, or you can watch it on TV. I'm not into tennis, so it's not something that's ever really been on my thing to do. But the next section I'm going to talk about is all the major exhibitions that are opening in June or have opened in the last few months. This is my favorite thing to do when we visit London, is all the museums, especially in the summer. They kind of hold their blockbuster exhibitions for the summer. And so this is the time to go see those exhibitions. A few travel tips for special exhibitions. While a lot of London's art museums and cultural museums are free to enter, the exhibitions are usually paid to get into, and so you have to pay to get into the exhibitions. Most of the major exhibitions kind of sell out in advance, so you need to decide what exhibitions you really want to see, and you need to see if you can get tickets in advance, because if you can't get tickets in advance, you're not getting in. They don't really have people line up to let people in, because it's a timed entry system. They have limited how many people can come in. So take note of these exhibitions you want to see so that you can book into them. And keep in mind, if you're not going in June, and you're still listening to this and you're going later in the summer, if you are interested in any of these exhibitions I mentioned, as soon as you're done listening to this, and I'll link it to show notes, but go book your tickets as soon as possible. A lot of exhibitions book and sell out. Like, for example, the Queen's Fashion Retrospective going on at the King's Gallery next to Buckingham Palace, that's sold out for the rest of the year. And I know a lot of people are going to be really disappointed when they try and get tickets to that, and they simply can't. The good news is, and I'm getting ahead of myself, that exhibition has been extended a whole 6 months into next year. So if you are going to Britain anytime in the next year and you want to see that, book the tickets now, even if you don't know for sure when your dates and times are going to be, because it's going to sell out. So I may have my Fortitude of tea here, Yorkshire tea every morning. So the big blockbuster at Tate Modern is Frida Kahlo. It's a major survey exhibition of her life and work. And it's a great opportunity to see the art of one of Mexico's greatest artists. If you've seen the movie Frida, this will appeal to you. She's had some beautiful artworks, some very interesting artworks. And her life is super fascinating. So this will be worth seeing at the Tate Modern. Tate Modern is worth seeing. Obviously, it's one of my favorite museums. It's I'm not really into modern art per se. It depends on the modern art. Last 50, 60 years of art, not interested. But maybe before that, it depends. So it depends. Modern art's very divisive, but we're not going to get into a ecclesiastical debate on the podcast. But the Tate Modern's gorgeous. It's in a former power station that was decommissioned, and then they stripped it out and then turned it into an art gallery. And it's worth seeing just for the architecture itself. And I'm an architecture nerd, so. But this exhibition is a great reason to go to the Tate Modern. So. The other big exhibition going on is the Royal Academy is going to be having its summer exhibition, which opens on the 16th of June. And it is the world's largest open submission art show. Anyone can enter. The walls are packed from floor to ceiling, and everything's for sale. It's chaotic and wonderful, and it's a great way to see up-and-coming artists, see established artists. And when you go to somewhere like the National Gallery or the Tate Britain and you see the most famous paintings in British history, a lot of them were exhibited at the Royal Academy at some point. And there's actually a famous painting of the Royal Academy summer exhibition. We're showing all the paintings. So it's worth seeing if you like art, and this is more art, if that makes any sense. Less like the art will be modern with modern takes, but if you want to see some more traditional style art, this is a good place to see it. So Anish Kapoor, the famous artist, is having a retrospective at the Hayward Gallery that opens on the 16th of June as well. He's the sculptor behind the giant mirrored and pigment pieces. Actually, we have an Anish Kapoor in Chicago, the famous Bean, which is Cloud Gate, I think is the official name. And so he does these big public artworks like that, or the artworks of the men, the statuesque men standing in famous places. So they're going to do a retrospective there. That's at the Hayward Gallery from the 16th. Then the National Portrait Gallery, and this literally just opened, I think today, is having a retrospective on Marilyn Monroe. So that's going to be worth seeing if you're a fan of Marilyn. National Portrait Gallery is actually right behind the National Gallery, Trafalgar Square. So it's easy to get to. They've got a new entrance, and they've done a gallery rehang, and they also show modern portraits of famous people. So it's worth visiting. I would check it out. This Marilyn Monroe thing will be worth seeing too, and I think this will sell out. So I would make sure that you get tickets to that. The Courtauld Gallery is doing an exhibition at Hepworth that opened on June 1st. That's going to be worth seeing. And then if you're at the Courtauld Gallery, take a look around, because it's one of London's great art galleries over at Somerset House. If you give you an insight into what exhibitions are currently running, Schiaparelli Fashion Becomes Art is going on to V&A. That's been selling out, and that's been really popular. The V&A excels at fashion and design exhibitions, so that'll be one worth seeing if that's in your wheelhouse. The Design Museum is continuing its Wes Anderson exhibition, which is a retrospective of the films of Wes Anderson, which, if you know, Wes Anderson films have a very specific look and feel about them. Well, it's a treat for film fans. And then Tracy Emin, one of the more famous modern artists who is very controversial, she did the sculpture that's hanging in the St. Pancras train station, which is actually one of my favorite public sculptures. Uh, another big exhibition is the James McNeill Whistler that's going on at Tate Britain. Now, he's famously an American, but he also spent some time in Britain, and he actually posted some very famous paintings of Britain. Well, all that is going to be on display and a retrospective of his career at the Tate Britain. This is a sellout show, so book your tickets as soon as you can. This will be worth seeing. It's running until the fall. Check it out. The National Gallery has an exhibition on Zubran, which is going on. If you listen to the Anglotopia podcast next week, you'll hear all about this. Winston Churchill, the painter, is going on at the Wallace Collection. Many people don't know that Winston Churchill was an accomplished painter. He took up the brush at 40 years old to give himself a hobby that was away from all the big important affairs of state that he conducted, and it was a way for him to focus on things that weren't stressful and horrible and everything. And he ended up painting over 500 canvases in his life, and he was very talented. He was trained by some of Britain's greatest painters at the time, and I would describe his style as pseudo-impressionist. And while you can see his paintings at Chartwell or some on display in National Trust properties, I know there's a few on display in museums in America, like at the National Churchill Museum. This is the first real exhibition of his paintings and the biggest one since 1965. And they've got over 50 paintings. They kind of that covers the whole career of his hobby, from beginning to end. They have some interesting Churchill artifacts. This show is going to sell out well in advance, so book your tickets. I am going to see this myself in August. I have my tickets already booked. I cannot wait to see this. The last exhibition of Churchill paintings I saw was in Atlanta about 10 years ago. And I actually flew down to Atlanta for the day just to see the exhibition and then came home that night. It was a lot of fun. I do love Atlanta. I've actually spent a lot of time in Atlanta over the years, but we had just had kids and like I could get away for a day and it was a birthday present. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And so highly recommend this exhibition if you have any interest in Churchill or World War II or the life of Britain's greatest hero. His paintings are beautiful. They're not just, a guy that did some canvases. No, he was a genuinely talented painter. When Churchill famously would not do something unless he could do it well, and he did painting very well. So check this out. You're going to want the exhibition catalog. It will be a collector's item. Highly recommend it. So that's enough about Churchill. At the Natural History Museum, the annual exhibition for Wildlife Photographer of the Year is going on. They've got a new exhibition on Jurassic Ocean's Monsters of the Deep. And the Natural History Museum is one of the most beautiful museums in London. It's worth going. And then for fans of Wallace and Gromit, and I'm a fan, and I think this is going to still be going on when I go in August. So at the Young V&A, which is the V&A's other museum, actually they have 3 museums in London now, depending on how you count it. They've got the Young V&A, which used to be called the Museum of Childhood, and then they've got the V&A, and then they now have the V&A East out in the Olympic Park. I'm getting off topic, but they've got a whole exhibition on the inside Ardman, Wallace and Gromit. If you love Wallace and Gromit, you can see the actual claymation statues. You can get an insight into how the famous films were made. This is worth seeing. I'm a huge Wallace and Gromit fan, obviously, as an Anglophile. I named my first dog Gromit. He's no longer with us, but I love Wallace and Gromit. And then closing this month, worth seeing. I'm gonna, and forgive me if I mispronounce this name, Michelina Wautier at the Royal Academy closes on the 21st of June. So there's just a few weeks left for that one. And Hokusai, 36 Views of Mount Fuji, has been going on at the Dulwich Picture Gallery. And I love Japanese prints. So this is going to be worth seeing. It closes June 30th. So if those are on your list or you have any interest in those things, book those tickets and go check them out because they close at the end of the month. So let's see. So theater in London. What better way to spend June than to experience theater in the city that practically invented it? So summer means that there's a lot of open air theaters. So Midsummer Night's Dream will be at Regent's Park Open Air Theater. Opens the 20th of June. Shakespeare Under the Open Sky in one of London's loveliest parks on a warm June evening. It's hard to beat. That's my top theater pick for the month. You can't beat it. It doesn't get dark till 10 p.m. anyway, so you enjoy some champagne, enjoy some theater out in the green in one of Shakespeare's funnest and most popular plays. And then Much Ado About Nothing is going on at Shakespeare's Globe Theater, which is that famous reconstruction of the famous playhouse on the South Bank. That's from June 11th, so you'll want to check that out. We've got a few shows opening on the West End this month. To Kill a Mockingbird, a new adaptation, opens on the 25th of June. And then Cyrano de Bergerac opens on the 13th. Those will be worth checking out. I will link in the show notes to where you can buy tickets. Many Anglotopia listeners might not know that you can actually buy tickets through a link that we provide, and we get a commission on that. And that helps support the work that we do here at Anglotopia and Londontopia. So I will put that link in the show notes. Long running shows that are still going on and are great for a great night out. Currently going on in London is The Lion King, which has been going on forever. Hamilton is back in London. Wicked, Les Miserables, Phantom of the Opera, Matilda, Mamma Mia, and Six are all going on right now. And then I believe the Harry Potter play is also going on, but that's always sold out. So good luck getting tickets to that. But like I said earlier about the exhibitions, if there's a theater show you want to see, book ahead and be prepared to pay, because a lot of these shows will sell out, or the best seats will sell out, or you may be able to score a deal on shows that are underattended by going to the TKTS booth in Leicester Square and getting like half price day tickets. Also check with the individual theaters on seat lottery options, and if you're watching your budget, and see if you can get in for a huge discount. Even if the shows are sold out, there's got to be something you can see. So just do some research ahead and be a little flexible in your schedule, and you can see some London theater before you leave London. So the next section is about live music. I'm well aware a lot of Americans wouldn't necessarily travel to London to see live music, but you never know. So I'll include this in here anyway. And if you want to hear more about live music, yell at the comments and I'll do some more scouring and find more people. So Harry Styles is going to be at Wembley Stadium from the 12th of June. I know he's popular with the kids these days. Olivia Dean is also at the O2 from the 12th. Orville Peck is at the Roundhouse in Camden. If you like your gigs in a great room, the Roundhouse is one of the best in London. It's in an old railway roundhouse where they used to maintain the trains, and it's really cool. And then there's also a new musical in the West End that opened recently, Sinatra the Musical. If you love Old Blue Eyes, you'll want to see that. So that's it for exhibitions, theater, and live music. I've left some things out, but I wanted this to be quick, and I wanted it to be to give you the highlights. If you want more granular detail, if we do this again, please just let us know in the content, and we'll do a little more digging for you for the next episode for July. Practical travel tips for June. It could be hot. Okay. I know they had a heat wave a few weeks ago. There was a whole debate on social media about why doesn't England and Europe have air conditioning? Well, England in general doesn't really have air conditioning. However, there are always exceptions to that. So let's talk about that. Does England have air conditioning? Does London have air conditioning in the summer? In newer buildings, yes, there will usually be air conditioning. So if you stay in a newer hotel, you'll probably have air conditioning. If you stay in an older hotel, air conditioning is a challenge because they can't retrofit air conditioning in a lot of these older buildings. If you're riding, say, the Elizabeth line, it's fully air conditioned. If you're riding, say, one of the older tube lines, Central Line, Piccadilly Line, your mileage is going to vary. A lot of them don't have air conditioning, and many people don't know that actually the London clay is a heat sink, and it absorbs heat, and then it doesn't let it back out. So the tube gets really hot in the summer when it's in the non-air conditioned bits. So if you are prone to heat issues, I would avoid the tube, except the Elizabeth line, which is fully air conditioned. But you can get east and west on the Elizabeth line. So restaurants probably won't be air conditioned, but a lot of restaurants will have outdoor seating now. You can sit outside or be a breeze. If you want it to be cooled by the water, go to Thames side restaurants. You get a breeze off the Thames. But a lot of the older buildings, they suck in the heat and they don't release it in those old stone buildings. And so our general advice to stay cool in the summer is, if you're going to be in Britain in the summer, the first thing you should do after you've landed and checked into your hotel or got into your Airbnb is you need to go to what the British call an ironmonger, which is a hardware store, which there are hundreds of hardware stores in central London, and you need to buy a fan. This is essential for Americans traveling in Europe, and I get so hot, even home with air conditioning. I just run hot and I sweat and it's gross and it's no fun for anybody. So the first thing I do is I just buy a fan. And the fan is only going to mitigate. And sometimes if it's really hot, you're only moving around hot air, but it's better than nothing. And we had these great fans. One year I was in Oxford for a summer course. They had these tower fans that would blow the air and they would oscillate, and they actually worked really well even in the hot old stone buildings. So get a fan and don't skimp. My travel hack for getting stuff like this, if you can't find a good fan at an ironmonger, look up on your phone, look for an Argos. And this is going to be a Midwest deep cut for any listeners who are from the Midwest. Do you remember Service Merchandise, that department store where it had a giant catalog and you would go in and you'd write down on a piece of paper what you wanted and then it would come out on a conveyor belt? Well, Argos is exactly like that. The soul of Service Merchandise lives on in Argos in the UK. It's literally, you go in, there's a big catalog, or you can do it on the computer now. You pick your thing and it comes out on a conveyor belt. I did this again from the Oxford trip for a fan and for a camp chair, and it's great. So, and it usually will be very affordable. So if you're good, don't even look at the weather forecast. Just get a fan. Just trust me, you're going to need a fan. Even if your hotel has air conditioning, get a fan. I know there are travel fans now. There's actually just one I'm going to test on my trip later this year, where it like folds up into a compact little thing. I'm going to try that. They're kind of expensive, so I hope it's not a waste of money. That's a good segue into the weather in London. So yes, it could be hot, but I should warn you, it could also be really cold. So Britain's weather, it's a maritime climate. It can change quickly. Storm can come in off the Atlantic and push all that heat out and dump a ton of rain and bring cold temperatures with it. And I didn't really know what this meant until I went to an outdoor concert in July. And there was rain in the forecast. It was raining on my way to the concert. But the temperature was like in the 40s, and it was in July. It was in the 40s, and I sat there in the rain in the 40s, got soaking wet, and I'm not exaggerating. I almost got hypothermia. When I got back to the hotel that night, I could not warm up. The heating wasn't on because it was July, and there were not enough blankets on the bed because it was July. So you should pack for all weathers. It will probably be nice and warm and pleasant. It might be a little hot, but it could also be really cold. So always bring a jacket, bring layers, watch the weather forecast, bring a waterproof jacket, bring an umbrella, and don't just pack shorts, pack some pants or some trousers, because it could end up being much colder than you planned, especially at night. That's the thing is, while if there's a heat dome sitting over Britain, it's not going to cool down at night. But but most of the time, it will warm up during the day and then cool off very quickly at night, and it will be pretty chilly in the evening. So you may even need a jacket if it was 85 degrees. Um, and I should talk about this as well, about the heat being different in Britain. So I'm from the Midwest, but I live near Lake Michigan, so our heat is very humid. So even if it gets to 80, 85, 90 degrees, there's a lot of moisture in the air from the Great Lakes. So it can be oppressively hot. That's kind of what Britain is like because they're a maritime climate. There's a lot of water around them. So that water, it makes it very humid. And so you get very hot and sticky and sweaty. Americans from the East Coast or the West Coast may totally not be prepared for it. They're like, oh, they're used to a dry heat. And a dry heat is so much different. It's still hot and oppressive, but it's not as sweltering as it is when it's super humid. So just be prepared. Uh, if you have strategies for staying cool in American summers, you need to bring those strategies with you to London. And like I said, the first thing you should do when you land is buy a fan. Just buy a fan. The corollary to that is the days in Britain in June are long. As we know, the longest day of the year is June 21st. Use the long days. Like you can experience so much in that 16 to 17 hours of sunlight. You can see many tourist attractions, even though most won't open until 10 a.m. But you can do big outdoor things like parks and river walks and rooftop bars in the evening. The daytime crowds have thinned out, and so a lot of places are less busy. Some tourist attractions will have special late summer hours, and I forgot to mention that earlier in the exhibitions. The National Gallery is experimenting with longer summer evening hours from July 1st, I think, to the end of August or early September. They're going to stay open till 7 p.m. In the evenings. And then on Fridays, I believe it's till 9 p.m. I'll link in the show notes to the article we have about it because I may be wrong. But what a great way to kind of cap your day. You could go to an early dinner and then go over to the art museum, and because it's free, and walk around and see the great art before they close. Like on a Friday night, it doesn't close till 9. Like do dinner at 6, walk over to the art museum, see some of the greatest art in human history, and then like it's great. Like that sounds wonderful. So take advantage of the long days. And like I said, and I guess that's a good travel tip too. A lot of the museums will be air conditioned. Even the old museums will be air conditioned because a lot of them have been renovated in recent years or had big investments in their. Like you can usually stay cool in a museum or a movie theater. Movie theaters will stay cool as well. And it's fun to go to movies in Britain. It's so different than going to the movies back in the US. And then, don't try to pack it in. I try to pack it in. I don't follow my own advice because I'm in London. Like I spend most of my year not in Britain. I'm going to do everything I can while I'm there. But, it is a vacation for a lot of my listeners. So, pick 3 or 4 things you actually care about and build your days around those. Leave time to just wander around the city and experience London in the summer. Leave some time to go to Green Park and sit in the deck chairs and watch London go by. London in June is much about long, slow evenings as it's about headline events. So just make sure you stay cool. So that's June in London. Royal pageantry, once a year crop of blockbuster exhibitions, Shakespeare Under the Stars, stadium gigs, and the longest, loveliest days of the year. If you want a full rundown with dates and booking links, I will put all those in the show notes. And then Londotopia.net, many of you may not know, has a London events calendar that we're doing our best to keep updated so that you can plan your trip around the major events happening in London. Everything I mentioned today is on the events calendar there. We have an article published this week that kind of summarizes most of what I just talked about. And if you liked this special episode, please let me know your feedback. If it proves popular, we'll do this every month and hopefully expand to covering events outside of London. So if you enjoyed this episode of the Anglotopia Podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone planning a trip to London. It really does help us grow. And if you'd like to follow along more closely with our coverage of London, Britain, and travel, consider joining the Friends of Anglotopia Club, where you get exclusive early access to the podcast, early articles, and exclusive content that you can't see anywhere else. So join us next time as we continue exploring the people, places, and stories that make Britain's cultural heritage so endlessly fascinating to discover. Thank you.